now the music is playing us in. I think that's how these things typically work.
Minstrels.
Have been minstreled. The minstrels have minstreled.
They're all minstreled out.
And here we are, lucky episode 13 of the Video Reformation podcast. I'm Ben Oliver.
Justin Plant.
We are the co-founders of Storyboard Media, and we are the hosts on your existential guide through whether video does anything for your company or not. Today we're going to be on, phase 6 of our 7 phases of practicing effective video for business.
Close to the end here.
We talked about, as I'm sure our 13 regular listeners know, there are 7 phases. So if this is phase 6, then our next episode will be our final phase. And then we'll have to figure out what the rest of our episodes look and sound like. Today we're going to be talking about promotion. We talked about distribution in our last episode. I think it makes sense to talk a little bit about the blurred lines between distribution and promotion again for anyone who hasn't listened to that episode. But, before we get into all that, I think it's important to welcome, this week we have a new sponsor. Yep. All right, let's see. This one is hot off the presses. Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. For that full-bodied elderly walrus stash. Simultaneously thickens your mustache to push broom consistency, dyes it an irreversible snow-white color regardless of your natural hair color, and instantly grows your whiskers just long enough to cover both your upper and lower lips, even while talking. Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. Pick up a tin or 10 at your favorite mustachery today. This product has not been approved or tested by the FDA. However, early reported side effects include constant smells of oatmeal, even when no oatmeal is around, curing diabetes, early onset diabetes. By listening to this advertisement, you hereby waive any and all right to legal recourse for any side effects experienced while using Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax.
They need to say that in the beginning, I think.
No, I don't know. I think that's
the point.
It goes at the end. The disclaimer goes at the end.
Okay.
See, now we have to start over because we're not allowed to do these interrupted sponsor pieces. Right?
I thought we're supposed to engage on this sort of. Is there more?
We are, but I've got to read all the copy.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we are required by law to read. So
yeah,
let's try this again. Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. For that full-bodied elderly walrus stash. Simultaneously thickens your mustache to push broom consistency, dyes it an irreversible snow-white color regardless of your natural hair color, and instantly grows your whiskers just long enough to cover your upper and lower lips, even while talking. Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. Pick up a tin or 10 at your favorite mustachery today. There is now a legal disclaimer.
Got it.
This product has not been approved or tested by the FDA. However, early reported side effects include constant smells of oatmeal, even when no oatmeal is present, curing diabetes, or early onset diabetes. By listening to this advertisement, you hereby waive any and all right to legal recourse for any side effects experienced while using Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. Be more curmudgeonly.
So one of my favorite parts about their mustache, as you know, they can't see, but I've got a big beard.
Yeah.
It actually moved all of my...
Could you rub it up against your microphone just so people can kind of like it? Oh, yeah. Can we tag this episode ASMR now? Beard-related ASMR. So yes, your beard.
Yeah, well, when I was trying this out, moved all of my beard hair to my mustache.
Yeah, I know. That was the cool part, right?
Well, and you're right. It does go pretty pure white.
Yeah.
Almost actually is technically I think it's like a polar bear fur. It's clear, but looks white to the eye.
And so if you get it dirty, like the dirt really shows.
Exactly, which is great because it covers your mouth.
Yeah.
So you're eating a peanut butter and jelly, you'll know if there's some on your mustache.
Yeah. Now, you can't undye it. That's the thing. Like, you tried to put, what's the stuff you put in your beard and mustache to get rid of the salt and pepper? Just for Men? I think you followed it up with the Just for Men because you're like, oh, my God, it's like polar bear white. And it just, like, it's like Teflon. It just doesn't let that dye get in there. But it does get dirty, which is nice. Yeah. How are you with the constant smells of oatmeal?
I didn't notice it.
Oh, okay. I think you just get used to it after a while.
Sure.
Probably. You have been more curmudgeonly lately.
Okay, good.
So that's a key part. But so welcome to our new sponsor, Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. Is Wilford Brimley alive or dead?
I'm looking that up right now.
I think he may be dead. Of course, if he's alive, then I apologize.
It is alive.
He is alive.
He's 84.
Yeah, well, he's got to cash in all these residuals checks from lending his name to Wilford Brimley's mustache wax. I think what is nice about these later episodes now is we've really been able to track the demographics of our active audience. And so we're starting to attract those advertisers and sponsors that like really know that we're going after the like elderly mustachioed set.
Yeah. Very valuable.
All right. Okay. So
we wanted to revisit that very, very gray line between promotion and distribution.
Yeah. So in our discussion last time, I believe I set the definition as distribution is putting your video or videos out there so that they can be found, whereas promotion is directing certain people to your video or videos.
Like targeting, being able to.
Yeah, and so I mean it's as simple as
It doesn't matter if it's paid or not.
exactly. I mean it could be segmenting your email list.
Sure.
And having certain customers or certain types of prospects be sent certain video content in that email. It could be utilizing hashtags and social posts from an unpaid standpoint.
That's
just to
definitely
get
one of
people who
those.
follow those. And then, of course, a lot of our discussion today will be about, kind of paid campaigns. And I think it's important to not get too in the weeds of a lot of the details of paid promotion campaigns for a couple reasons. One is it's constantly changing. And so we will, for lack of any more experience, we'll just use like the kind of layman's terms for some of these things, like pre-roll ad. I don't even know as of today what YouTube calls a pre-roll ad because I feel like every 2.5 months they change the name of what all this stuff is. And it's also detailed enough that I think we've got future episodes where we can get into specific targeting tactics for specific channels. But today we want to keep it kind of high level, talk about almost the theory of promotion. And I think a lot of our discussion is going to revolve around, and for people who haven't listened to any of the last 4 or 5 episodes, this is not necessarily about using video to promote your product or service. When we say promotion, we're talking about promoting your video content.
That part of the video practice.
Yes, because it's not enough just to put something out there and assume that people will find it. Just because you put something on YouTube doesn't mean that people will actually find it. We discussed optimization in our last episode, right? How to help people find it. And I think that's one of the things that we learned early on too, is that we would give these individual video deliverables to our clients. They'd put it up on YouTube. They wouldn't optimize it at all, and then they'd wonder why 6 months later they only had 27 views. Well, part of it is because they just thought that, YouTube has a lot of traffic, people will find.
Yeah.
But the flip side to all the YouTube stats that you always see is how much content is constantly being uploaded.
Right.
Certainly it's widely used, but there's so much noise that you really have to bring in this promotion avenue to get the appropriate people to see your video content.
And also that, like this goes back to creative, but that's why we don't speak in generalities. You need to be very specific about what your message is and what that intention is, because there are how many hours of video are uploaded each day?
At least 9 million. I don't know. There's you're looking it up, so I could just make something up right now and we could totally pull that off, or you could actually tell us.
1,300,000,000. Oh, sorry.
That's a number.
But here's okay.
Is it the number we were looking for?
No. There are 300 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute.
Jesus.
300 hours. Almost 5 billion videos are watched every single day on YouTube.
Yeah, so what are the odds that your little testimonial video for your local business or startup or whatever are just gonna be stumbled upon by someone,
especially if the file name is Final Cut version 2.
Right. Yes. So something that we started doing, I feel like almost 2 years ago now, is for our clients, which for any new listeners, we primarily work with B2B companies. But a lot of this does apply to B2C companies too. But I think when we talk about specific targeting, we'll be using more B2B examples. But, we don't, when we're making
Video.
a video, when we're making a video for a client, we don't just deliver a video. We actually turn that into its own campaign. So we call that a video like an anchor video, right? So there's a primary piece of video content that's being made, and we will, create that, we'll deliver that, but we will also create promotional content that's specifically designed to drive people to usually the landing pages where then that content is being held. So sometimes those are just like little 15 to 30 second snippets from inside of that video. Sometimes it makes sense to actually script out certain promotional videos themselves and capture that in the production process and edit those as additional deliverables. But we do that so that our clients can get the most eyes on the video we want them to make. And so if you can make a teaser kind of, whether it's, we've done some presentations, for example, at events, or like TED type talks, where some of the promos we make, we deliberately look for those moments where there's a question, and then we end the teaser. It's a true teaser because we end the teaser right after the question has been posed, but we don't share the answer. So are we better off after moving to company XYZ? End the promo, watch the full video, right? So that is like a true teaser, but that's just a subset of the content that was made.
And that may be one version of that teaser.
Exactly.
Because of the call to action, right?
Yep.
Call to actions can be very platform dependent. Like if it's click here or go to this, like you want to make it as convenient for that person as possible, but not every platform is going to allow you to click the link in the profile or whatever. Right. So having just as simple as different versions with calls to action can be very helpful.
So, for us, just for context, we're coming in this discussion, we're coming from a place of creating that anchor content, but also knowing that you're going to create promotional pieces. And usually, 2 to 3 pieces are usually enough to give yourself or your client some options, again, to either run paid or non-paid promotional campaigns. But, especially if it's longer form content, throw the 15-second teaser out there, get people, make it choose a compelling part of it, make a compelling call to action, and then you get people to go to to watch the full content.
Or, give, like a lot of times we'll give 2-3 cut downs, like you're saying, little teasers or whatever. And that's just a great way to test like which one works. And then you end up you dump a lot more money into the one that works.
Good point.
What's the first thing to consider when you're creating your promotional strategy here?
Well, if you look at the definition of promotion, it's about targeting specific people. It's getting specific people to see your video. So it's really about who are those people. A lot of that goes into the parameters that you're selecting when you're running your paid promotional campaigns.
So, for instance, if you're a flower shop, demographics might be
B2B flower shop.
Well, I bet that exists.
I'm sure it does.
But if you're a local flower shop on 9th Street, you're probably doing more demographic, probably some behavioral, but like you're going to set a geo boundary.
Yep, you're going to set zip codes or an area code or something. You're going to set, but you don't have to make those things up when you're. The main point here is you don't have to make those things up when you're going to launch your promotion, because this is where it's all on this foundation of strategy. We've made this specific video content to speak to a specific audience. And we've defined that audience. And we've defined that audience, or we've made multiple videos that are slightly different because they speak to slightly different audiences in their own way. So you want to then just take that persona information that you've gotten, that you've already defined in your strategy, and that's where you're almost just like plugging in the blanks when you're doing that. So some of it might be that I know that even if you have like named personas, if our Alicia persona follows the hashtags, flowers near me and creative flower ideas, creative floral ideas, something like that, well, that may be a great hashtag to post the promotional content, hashtag it with those kinds of things, And that's an unpaid campaign right there. That then is that promo content that's driving people to then your larger video that's on the landing page that then has, your specials or the order or whatever on that same landing page. Or if you're doing the paid campaign, you can select those geographical areas. When you get into retargeting, you can even get to people who've been on the site before, people who've bought from us before.
Who've bought from or been to a competitor's site.
Yep. I think that's one of the most intriguing things about YouTube is that, and again, I always forget what they're actually calling it on any given day, but those pre-roll ads, even the display ads that are just like the thumbnail that's next to a video that plays, you can target specific videos and specific competitors' channels so that your ads play before your competitors' videos play. So if you've got, if you want to create content, for example, and this gets a little bit outside of the scope of this conversation, if you wanted to create some specific YouTube pre-roll ads, why not make the content about the differentiator between you and your competitor, have that be a pre-roll ad before knowing that you're going to target it to your competitors' videos. That's a great way to spend 5 or 30 seconds or 15 seconds saying, use so-and-so, here's how we're better, check us out. Knowing that. So and I think that's something that we discussed in the strategy conversation too, is sometimes there's a chicken and egg angle to some of this stuff.
Yes.
You have to make certain decisions. You have to make as many decisions as you can early on in your strategizing, but it doesn't mean that as you go along, you could come up with a great creative idea or new opportunity or something like that, and then go back and tweak your strategy.
Right.
A strategy isn't something, I'm going to blow it, but there's a quote from Eisenhower that I've seen recently that's basically along the lines of plans are useless, but planning is indispensable, or something like that. So having plans, you so rarely get to follow them because things come up.
I'll send a quote your way. Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Sure, exactly, right? So you can plan all you want, but it's actually the process of planning that helps you better prepare for that punch to the face.
Right.
It's not unexpected to sign up for a free trial.
Yes, it could be that, like if it's further down the funnel, may be a longer video and therefore you're trying to get them to see the whole demo or something, but.
Right. So the first thing to consider is who we're targeting, and then I think one of the other things that we learn is where those people consume content too. Talk a little bit about that.
So that can be a couple things, but mainly it's what platforms are they on? Where are those people, and how can you get your content in front of them? If that's people cord cutters and they're a lot younger, they don't have cable, then running TV commercial isn't really the best place to be running your ad. There's platforms, and then there's also devices. Is kind of like it comes into play when capitalizing on someone's intent. Like if they're on their phone, like because it's like, oh shit, Mother's Day is tomorrow. Their intent is to buy flowers quickly. They're more than likely, they're not going to go surfing for a long time and go to their desktop. They're going to get on their phone and order the flowers immediately.
Yep.
So being able to understand a viewer's intent, and so you may not have the same ad running on a Hulu pre-roll type thing. Just kind of knowing where your audience is and what they're doing when they're thinking about you or the solution that you provide can be helpful.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a part of your persona development too. Everybody tends to use themselves as an example, I think, and so if you tend to watch a lot of video on your mobile device, a lot of those are B2C type things because we're typically more, consumers, B2C consumers in our everyday life than B2B consumers. But I don't know the exact stat, but I think the last I saw was that 88%, it was either 82 or 88% of B2B video content is viewed on desktop.
Sure.
And so while yes, you want to be aware of what people's intent and what devices, but also what platforms. I mean, if you're a B2B marketer and a lot of your audience is on LinkedIn, then you may want to put more resources into your LinkedIn promotions than into your TikTok promotion, right? I mean, I don't know how many C-suite people are on TikTok these days, unless they're checking out on their own ads that they're doing. But yeah, so I think it's device, I think it's intent, I think it's platform, and all of that stuff in a nutshell. All of that stuff comes from the research, that kind of self prescription, that self diagnosis and prescription in the strategy phase. And so at this point, there should be fewer surprises, and so a lot of it you're just executing.
So on that, after who and where. When is also an important thing. I think one of the most accessible, back when people used to listen to the radio in the car, they would play like pizza ads during the breaks at rush hour, because people are pissed off at rush hour. They don't want to cook when they get home.
They're already running late.
Yeah. Yep. Get some pizza. So when can be an important part too. Like I said, like I was talking about before, intent. Like people are going to eat dinner. That you can pretty much bet on that. People are going to buy flowers near Mother's Day. People probably aren't in the B2B mindset at 9:00 at night.
True.
So just knowing that you're going to launch your campaign on LinkedIn between the hours of 10 and 11 on Wednesdays, because that's the day that people reserve for office work. I don't know. You would know that about your audience at the time.
Right. And I imagine much like LinkedIn overall, like their traffic plummets on Saturdays and Sundays. So, maybe keep your ad campaign to Monday through Friday. If you've got international customers, don't just set your times based on your time zone. Make sure you're allowing for your international customers and whatever time zone they may be in too.
Time of year, time of day, time of week, all those.
Time of year is an interesting one too, and I think this is another. It's a little bit more of a B2C example, but like the whole holiday season. I mean, if you're not already running your promotions by like November 1st for holiday stuff, you're behind the game. Which means that you need to start planning that stuff out in July, August, doing it in September, October, launching it in November, run it November, December. I mean that
But working backwards, if you're a company that helps online retailers, there's a B2B, so you know that. I don't know this in particular, but maybe March is the best time to sell because they're already thinking about Q4 in March.
Yep. We've skipped over a couple unpaid. I think it's worth talking a little bit about email as a promotional channel, because depending on the size of your list and the health of your list, I think I'm really just getting at segmenting. Sure. The better segmented your lists are, the more opportunity you've got to use your email list as an unpaid promotional channel. Because you can go after, if you've created an anchor video for, let's say, upselling or new sales within existing customers, you could create 3 promo videos for that and know that in the next 3 bi-weekly emails that you send out to that to your list, you're going to use each of those promos in each of the next 3 videos. Now, it's probably not worth glossing over that you're using an image of a thumbnail with a play button on it so that people know that it's a video, and you're just going to get higher click-through rates when you do that anyway. But you don't want to send that out to your master list, right? If it's something that's specifically messaged, and again, going back to the manifesto part, specific, this is content that you have created specifically for that specific audience, then why waste sending it out to prospects?
Yeah.
Right? If it's specifically got messaging for existing customers, or former customers, right?
Yeah.
It would be weird if I was a prospect, have never used the platform, and I got an email with a video from them that says, "We'd love to have you back." I'd be like, "You don't know who I am. You should be doing better." Like, and the sheer fact that I feel like I got the wrong email might even make me less likely, or more likely to unsubscribe. Probably at that point.
As a company, you have to earn that trust. Because, I mean, again, this is unpaid. Of course, you can go out and buy email lists, but that's paid email. This is unpaid. These are people who have given you voluntarily their email address, and you got to keep that trust. So making sure that your message is relevant to them and helpful based on time of year, who they are, all the things we said before.
Yeah.
Where, who.
I think email is another great place to do some A/B testing also. Before you invest in a paid promotional campaign, you can do some A/B testing and try out different thumbnails, different call to action copy, different supporting copy that you're going to put in the ad, for example, when you run it. You can use your email list, run an A/B test to that specific target, and see which one gets better click-through rates. And whichever one performs better. I mean, that's a way to save money by going into your paid promotion knowing that you got the data from your email subscribers saying this one got better response. Now, of course, as with any A/B testing, you've got to have a large enough sample size and all those things. But, I mean, that's a good way to just do some free A/B testing. I feel like between last episode and this episode, we've kind of beat the hashtags on social channel. But, if you've got personas and you don't have listed in their personas what hashtags they tend to follow, that's something that's great to add to your persona information.
Do you follow any hashtags?
Yeah, I do.
Sometimes I'll click on when I'm interested to see what else someone posted about, like tomahawk ribeye.
Yeah, it's less companies. It's more behavioral stuff. Like I think I follow hashtag Doctor Who drumming, cosplay, some things like that. And so I'll find.
You've never worn a costume to work?
No.
You just like admiring the people who do?
Yeah, I think it's. I don't. I ascribe to geek culture, but not that much.
Inwardly, not
yeah. It's like I enjoy consuming sci-fi and geeky type content, but I don't necessarily feel like I've never been to a con. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right, hashtags.
Hashtags.
Now, would you hashtag an email?
I would not hashtag an email, although I think I do follow hashtag email. No, but I do follow different hashtags on LinkedIn than I do on Instagram, for example. So like on LinkedIn, I'm thinking more about work. And so I'm more interested in, I follow video strategy, video marketing, all those kinds of things, because I like to hear what people are talking about, just so I'm reminded how smart we are and how dumb everyone else is. Or vice versa. It depends on the day.
I think I've seen about 4 video strategy hashtags in my life.
Yeah, and 3 of them are from us. And then on Instagram, it's more I don't follow a hashtag cosplay on LinkedIn, but I follow hashtag cosplay, which maybe I should. It would be interesting. But that's it too. So even as you're further developing those personas, maybe by channel, you should be tracking what kind of and it's less like what hashtags do they follow, but what are these people interested in?
Yep.
And then what are the hashtags that serve that? Because that's the stuff that shows up in their feed. So if you're hashtagging it properly, then that's more likely to show up in somebody's feed who's interested in what you're doing, which means they're more likely to be a potential customer of yours. Any other unpaid promotional avenues?
No, I scratched my head about that before the episode, but I can't come up with anything.
I haven't either. But this would be one of those moments where I would encourage our audience to point out any unpaid promotional avenues. Again, promoting your video content, not promoting your product. Okay, let's jump into some of the paid methods.
Now, what's this first one you have on here?
It's YouTube.
Tube. Yep.
YouTube.
Okay. But it's one word. That's what threw me off.
Yeah. Maybe it's Yout Ube. Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog. YouTube. I think that is, by its nature of being owned by Google, they've folded YouTube into Google AdWords.
Mm-hmm.
So you launch your campaigns from the same platform that you're launching any of your PPC campaigns. And I've mentioned this in previous episodes too. Part of the YouTube certification training that was so weird to me is humble brag, YouTube certification. I'm not YouTube certified, but I've started the certificate. Like I just realized that it sounds like, when I was getting YouTube certified.
When I was at Harvard,
when I started the YouTube certification that I haven't finished yet. One of the weird things about the content is how it's, so the first part of it is for creators. And they talk a lot about creating content that is friendly for your advertisers. Mm-hmm. And so like they are just...
That doesn't sound like something they would say.
It doesn't, which is why it was so weird. Like it is, right? Like television was always an advertising medium.
Platform, yep.
You create the content so that you can sell the ad time, right? I mean, that's just what it may sound like a cynical view to some people, but that's what it always has been.
Right.
It's there. It's funded by the commercials.
Yep.
And you get this content for free so that you'll watch the commercials.
But do you remember the first TV commercial?
No.
Oh, I know. I don't think you were alive, but I feel like we've talked about this before.
I feel like we have too. I just don't remember what it was.
Image. Yeah, I gotta look that up again. That was the first TV commercial. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah. But, of course, for it to be a for-profit venture, YouTube now that they have YouTube Premium and YouTube TV, certainly they are making some money off of viewers. Mm-hmm. But, most of YouTube is still just free and accessible. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they make their money off of advertising. And a lot of people have figured out how to make a lot of money off of sharing that monetization. But yeah, I think that is one of the easiest go-to platforms. You've got multiple options. Again, who cares what it's called today, because it'll be called something different next week. But, you've got your pre-roll ads. Mm-hmm. Now they're even doing multiple ads before videos play.
Especially long videos.
Yeah. You've got your 5-second ads, which are skippable after 5 seconds. And as of the recording of this podcast, you get basically free advertising up to 30 seconds, I believe.
It depends on how you set it up.
Well, yeah, that's true. There are so many different ways. So you can skip it after 5 seconds. You can make it unskippable.
6-second bumper.
You can do a 6-second bumper. They've got post-roll ads now. Sometimes they're doing like
mid-roll.
These 15-second unskippable ads, 30-second unskippable ads. We've talked before about like how Purple and a couple of other brands are doing like 30-minute pre-roll ads, and they're just engaging enough that you actually don't skip. Like they're skippable, right? No one in their right mind would put a 30-minute unskippable ad. I don't even think that's an option. But they make these 30-minute long ads that yet somehow are unskippable. We talked a little bit about how you can target specific, not just specific demographics, and you can do a lot with retargeting. Talk a little bit about retargeting. Just for those who don't know.
Sure. It's a fascinating place to play as an advertiser. If someone's been to your site, you can retarget them in that fashion to if they were on a specific landing page about your event, you can retarget them with a video that is very specific to that event. You can kind of set a time frame too. If they've been to these web properties in the past 30 days, so that might be a competitor or it might be an auxiliary product. Like if someone's been to Mary Kay, they're like as an affinity, like they're more likely to also buy tampons.
Sure.
I don't.
No. Talk about what you know.
But, retargeting, if someone's watched a specific video before, you can retarget them. So there's just a lot of different opportunities to re-engage someone if they haven't actually pulled the trigger, if they've been to a competitor site, and so on.
Yeah. A little bit more about YouTube, according to the research I have in front of me here. YouTube advertisers report an average cost per view ranging between 10 cents and 30 cents. I think it's important to note here that almost all paid campaigns are a highest bid auction process. So whether you're running it on YouTube, a social channel, running a programmatic ad, whatever. In fact, if you're watching, like if you're on CNN.com or your local news station, and you start to load a video on one of their pages, and it's got that buffering loading icon, it's not actually buffering and loading the video that you've selected to play. That's actually giving the ad servers time to instantaneously calculate who gets the highest bid based on who's viewing, and it figures out which ad to play. It pulls that ad and it plays that. So anytime you've got that spinning wheel or the dial or whatever before a video on any site that has ads, it's not a buffering issue. It's actually just calculating which ad am I going to play right now, and then if that's your ad, you get charged for that view.
On that reminded me of a really interesting pre-roll option that YouTube rolled out called Director. Is that it?
Yeah.
Where you can upload
pieces.
It's like an equation.
Yeah.
If the viewer is watching this video about lions or whatever, then you're gonna make this Bud Light commercial with this picture of a lion and this voiceover. And then it'll mix it all together based on that in that exact moment, based on that viewer and their demographics or behavioral data, and will ultimately direct that video to be very specific to that viewer.
It's kind of like audio stems, and I don't know if audio stems is a metaphor that's more accessible for our listeners, but it's like they could almost call it YouTube Remix. I mean, you've got to upload all of these individual assets. Right, you've got to have this library of 15-second video clips, and then 15 different
calls to
or
action.
30 different calls to action with 10 different voiceovers, and then you set certain parameters, and then based on what they're watching, who they are, all those kinds of parameters, then it just mixes and matches the right video clip with the right title copy, with the right music, with the right VO, whatever, and serves you something that is not personalized but personal.
Way more than most.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'd forgotten about that. And in fact, it's either gotten so good that I don't notice it anymore, or it just hasn't caught on as well as I remember the first ones. I think it was Corona, maybe, or maybe it was Bud Light.
I want to say Bud Light.
It was definitely a beer brand.
I think the Remix was a beer or something. When you said that.
Yeah, maybe that's where I'm getting that from. Anyway, so this is all about the bidding process once you get into paid ads. So, and actually here, going back to the pre-roll ads, which they currently call in-stream ads, the 5-second ads allow the viewer to skip after 5 seconds, which is what most of us usually see. And you only pay for the ad if the viewer watches 30 seconds or takes action on your video. So anything under 30 seconds is just kind of a brand exposure kind of thing. Now, I think it brings up a relevant point that we got to in distribution a little bit also, which is optimize your content for your platforms. The same thing is true, if not more true, for your promotional stuff, because you're paying for your promotional stuff to be seen. So if with a 5-second skippable ad, with a 30-second ad that's skippable after 5 seconds, put something branded up in that first 5 seconds before they can skip, so that at least if they skip it, you've got that brand recognition opportunity.
That's perfect for Geico, who they're just trying to say Geico.
Yeah.
They don't need you to watch anything. They just want you to remember Geico.
Yeah, and they have had some fun with some of their skippable things where they make you not want to skip it.
Yeah.
And then they end up having to pay because you end up watching all the way through the 30 seconds, or you act on it or whatever. And again, this is, sometimes I feel like we're too deep into this stuff. This would be a promotional ad before some other video content where the call to action is takes you to then that landing page of that anchor content so that they can watch the full content in this scenario. So I suppose you could also direct them to your longer content on YouTube, but I think you're better off putting it on your landing page,
bringing them into your,
because that's where you can actually capture their information.
Yep.
And then, of course, the other part of YouTube is those discovery ads, which are basically the thumbnails in the top right. And those are done almost more like standard pay-per-click ads. So those are things that aren't running before or after an ad. They're just going to be topical or behavioral, somehow related to. And it kind of sits, there's a line between it, but it sits like at that next, at the top of the list of like autoplay. It's not quite the autoplay stuff, but it's there so that it gets your attention. And it's, you know, the more you can define your target audience, the more relevant it's going to be for them, the more likely, and the higher your bid, honestly. I mean, if you're putting in like a max of 10 cents per view, you're less likely to show up than if you're putting in a max bid of 30 cents.
But again, that goes to that long tail of specificity, right?
That's true.
If you're very specific about the content that you're making, then you're on that long tail, and your ads, you don't bid for.
You've got less competition. The longer tail search. Do we think people know long tail search? Do they know what we're talking about when we say that?
Yeah, I'm confident they're smart enough for.
Okay.
Yeah.
But and then of course, the pre-roll ad is a video that's going to play, but that display ad is, you got to optimize the hell out of your thumbnail, because it's not a playing video. So you got to make a really compelling thumbnail that gets someone's attention, so that either before they start watching what they intended to watch, or after it, before they get distracted by something else, your thumbnail has to be enough for them to want to click on. So the longer tail, the higher bids, the better targeting, that's all going to get more relevant content into your more likely audience. That's essentially what promotion comes down to. It's because it costs money. Be smart about it, so that you're more likely to get in front of the people who will actually buy or do whatever it is you're trying to get them to do. Okay. What about social channels? I think in this discussion, I tend to kind of lump together certainly Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, because they're more, I don't know, and I think we run into this a lot too. It's we tend to mistakenly sometimes rely on our own personal habits. Like, I don't use Facebook anymore. I don't use Twitter. But like, our largest audience of followers is actually on Twitter somehow. I don't know how, and I've never really gotten Twitter, but like, it would be stupid of us to not consider Twitter a platform where we might want to run a campaign. So one of the things that we always do in our springboards for our clients is we actually go through and audit their social channels and just see where their viewers are. And because most of the work we do is in B2B, fortunately, most of their followers end up being on LinkedIn. So for the sake of B2B conversation, I'm going to set LinkedIn aside. When it comes to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they're basically all the same. It's the same kind of parameters. You got the same kind of retargeting opportunities. They tend to cost less. LinkedIn does cost more than those channels. But again, I think the reason is because it's a B2B playground. Is that what you said?
B2B play, probably.
Oh, B2B play, yes. So, Facebook, it's just so easy to set up these campaigns. Again, I think there are future episodes where we can actually walk our audience through how to do those and how to set those parameters. But it's just so easy to do. Like,
they make them pretty intuitive.
Yeah. And then LinkedIn, I do set aside because, one, it is more expensive. But again, for B2B marketers, that's where your audience is. And it's not only where your audience is, but it's where your audience, if they're using LinkedIn, is going for business type stuff. How do I increase my ROI? How do I find more best practices? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, like I was saying earlier, I follow different hashtags on LinkedIn than I do on Instagram. I have no expectation that I'm going to learn anything of value about like video strategy on Instagram, but I can pretty safely believe that I can learn something interesting about it on LinkedIn. When
is LinkedIn, like, so far, everyone's kind of played by the unspoken rule of keep it to business content. When is that going to be bastardized?
Tuesday. Tuesday. I don't know which one. but it's
I'm
going
just
to happen on a
surprised
Tuesday.
how good people are. I mean, I'm starting to see some people misuse it a little bit. It's just surprising that it hasn't.
I don't know that it will. I think people have so many
Other options.
I imagine there's some really accessible stats about, what platforms the average person uses.
Well, but
And I think they use each platform for different things. Like, I don't use Facebook anymore, largely because once I got on Instagram, I felt like I didn't need kind of the bullshit that Facebook gave me. All I needed was like that non-interactive, like visual touch point with people, which is all I really ever wanted out of Facebook anyway. But Facebook just had all other kinds
Groups
of
and
crap attached to it.
yeah.
So I haven't been on Facebook in months, and yet I use Instagram multiple times a day. Still haven't figured out Twitter.
But I don't even see a whole lot of B2C going on LinkedIn. Like, you'd think that someone who manufactures ties might, would Men's Big and Tall, is that a store?
It's a potential sponsor.
But
Men's Big and Tall. Not a big and tall store for men. It's just big and tall men. Men's Big and Tall.
People in business wear ties and suits, but you don't see them advertising. Come get our suit. Come to our suit sale.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just interesting that it hasn't happened.
Talk to me. So I think there's YouTube, there's LinkedIn. From a B2B standpoint, there's YouTube opportunities, LinkedIn opportunities, there's social opportunities, just because I'm going to lump everything into that group. And then another opportunity is programmatic. So like you mentioned Hulu pre-roll. I just realized recently that, and maybe it just happened recently, but like Amazon Prime Video, I guess, acquired IMDb TV. So I've got shows that are included in Prime that I can watch ad-free, but I can also access a whole bunch of other shows through my Amazon Prime Video that are IMDb TV, and then I just have to watch like 4 1-minute ad sections where they'll do like a 30-second spot and 2 15-second spots. And that would be something that you would run through a programmatic platform. And typically these programmatic platforms are like, you have access to dozens, if not hundreds, of potential platforms.
Yeah.
So you upload your video ad.
And it's not just Hulu and Prime TV.
Right.
It's CNN.
It's CNN.com. It's SI.com. It's ESPN. It's Home and Garden Television, one of my favorite.
Yes.
It's sites. It's and with some platforms you can actually pick the specific sites. With some of them you can pick categories. But they do, at least in my experience, most of the programmatic platforms do feel a little bit more general consumer focused than B2B focused. But I think if you're picking the right categories of channels like Money and Forbes and Fast Company, CNN Money, those kinds of things, you're probably more likely to get more, the business type people or professional people. So I do think it's more of a general consumer audience. But, one of the first ones that we used is called Brandzuka. And one of the great things about that platform, and I think most of them actually do this now, is as you go through and you make your selections for your promotional campaign, it'll tell you what your estimated reach is. So it'll tell you, like, out of 48 million potential viewers, based on these criteria, you will and these, bidding standards, you will likely reach, with this maximum daily spend for 2 weeks, 14,000 people. And they don't guarantee that, but like that's a pretty good way to kind of, dip your toe in the water for those platforms. And then, of course, they've got great analytics. And I think it's worth noting, too, that on those platforms, it's typically more the cost per 1,000 impressions pricing than the cost per click pricing.
Didn't you just tell me something interesting in that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Not just now.
Oh.
No, about NBC?
Yes, all NBC-owned affiliates are abandoning ratings as a way to price their ads. And they're moving to CPM, cost per 1,000 impressions. because they have so many platforms at this point, right? They've got it's the local news channel, and they've got their broadcast, which is now usually over cable, satellite, digital, an app. They've got their website where they're putting the video stories along. They've got all of these platforms that they're actually able to capture the information and the analytics based on what their actual viewership is. Mm-hmm. So they're able to price out local ads for cost per impressions as opposed to
they
Nielsen
have
ratings
digital
or whatever.
analytics and not working off of analog viewer ratings. It's
which were always a
more
projection anyway. And one of the interesting things about it is with local stations, oftentimes if you wanted to get super specific with your like geographical demographics, they were too small a ratings point to really be able to measure. So if you wanted to look at like one zip code in a rural area because you're the farm and seed store, you didn't have enough data to know what the actual ratings were in that zip code, whereas now, because it's all digital, they've got actual impressions, and that's what they charge you for. And so, like, TV is and radio, I guess, but radio doesn't do video. TV is the last bastion of ratings for setting advertising and promotional prices. And now this is the first, NBC is the first big platform to just go strictly to cost per 1,000 impressions instead of ratings.
You know what's interesting? It sounds more and more like promotion, but as like the sixth step of practicing video is like the ABM approach.
Go on.
It's that there are a very well-defined audience, and you're looking at getting in front of just them. You're not broadcasting and just spilling the shit everywhere. You're going directly to someone with a very specific message and a very specific intention, and you ask them to do something.
And sometimes you can go after actual individuals.
Sure.
Like if you have email addresses, you can upload those to LinkedIn, and it will target those people. But sometimes it's just that you have to set all of your parameters properly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is interesting. You don't necessarily have a list of 100 companies that you're going after, but you've got, based on your criteria, you've got 100 people that this is going to be advertised to, and that they're the right fit for who buys your stuff. That's interesting. Yeah, I think that works. What else do we have? Because we're 54 minutes and we started recording late. So
yeah, we have some examples of promotional campaigns and suggestions we've made to clients in the past. I think for the sake of time, we'll probably just tuck those in the show notes.
Yeah, I think we've got case studies on both of them,
okay.
So we can just link to those case studies. But
we have to redact some things. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know that we have to.
Okay.
Because we've got them as case studies, so I think we're fine. So we'll link to a couple case studies in the show notes so that you can actually see how we've created anchor content and then created promotional content specifically to drive people to that anchor content. They are slightly different examples, so it's worth looking at them both. One is actually a YouTube channel that we created for a client. So we've got some promotional stuff for the channel, and then we've got promotional content for each episode. So we could run the channel promos and the episode promos as paid promotional pieces, driving people to the YouTube channel to watch the full episode and increase subscriptions. And then the other one was there's an anchor piece of content for an event that was part of an overall campaign to get people to register for an annual event for one of our clients. And we specifically created 4 or 5 promotional pieces that were kind of like behind the scenes teasers that were less value driven and more like fun and engaging, so that they would kind of tease people and get them to want to watch then the full video, which was still a very fun video, and then get them to actually register for the event. So a couple different approaches there. So we'll put those 2 things in the show notes. I imagine, again, there's future episodes where we can get into more detail about how to actually run
on a particular
promotional
platform,
campaigns on a particular platform. And then in our next episode, we will kind of be rounding out this 1 episode per 7 phases. So The final phase here is analytics, or I guess it's analysis, but it's really looking into analytics. We're not just going to be talking about analytics. We're going to be talking about the different types of analytics. We're going to talk about kind of viewer analytics, vanity analytics versus like value analytics. So there's all those kinds of things that like some platforms are willing to give you, but then more advanced platforms are willing to give you much more valuable information that actually goes to ROI and user behavior.
I think,
and all those
the
kinds of
integrations
things.
and such are so valuable.
And I think a big part of our conversation is going to be about the insights, because numbers only show you so much. And so I think we'll get into a little bit about what certain analytics mean. And that'll round out our discussion on the 7 phases. So I imagine sometime in the next couple of weeks, we'll have to figure out what our next slate of episodes will be.
A big surprise coming on episode 15.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to figuring out what episode 15 is.
More of a surprise for us.
Yes, but I do hope that you've enjoyed our penultimate episode in this series of the 7 phases of practicing effective video for business. We sure appreciate you all listening, and I think it's time for a quick closing word from our sponsor.
Yeah, let's have it.
Let's see. Our sponsor today, of course, Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax, for that full-bodied elderly walrus stash. Simultaneously thickens your mustache to push broom consistency, dyes it an irreversible snow white color regardless of your natural hair color, and instantly grows your whiskers just long enough to cover your upper and lower lip, even while talking. Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. Pick up a tin or 10 at your favorite mustachery today. Disclaimer: this product has not been approved or tested by the FDA. However, early reported side effects include constant smells of oatmeal, even when no oatmeal is around, curing diabetes, or possibly early onset diabetes. By listening to this advertisement, you hereby waive any and all right to legal recourse for any side effects experienced while using Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax. Be more curmudgeonly.
Does it come with a shotgun if you buy 10 tins?
I think people just start handing you shotguns. Like, they're like, Wilford Brimley's Mustache Wax? You're like, yep. And they just, hand you a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Well, that concludes this episode of the Video Reformation. We look forward to tickling your ears next time. And, I think it's time for outro banter.
Okay. Cue the outro banter.
Yes. The outro.
Anthony, give me a topic. Phonetic alphabet? Okay.
K, D, E, G, J,
T.